Hello, everyone. This is Angela here, and today I want to talk about reunion with Narcissistic Mother, reflections on that video series, and um, my thoughts 6 years later, as opposed to when I made that video series, reunion with Narcissistic Mother. Um, okay, when I first went through what I went through with my narcissist mother, with the whole situation. And now I'm going to do a brief recap for people that are watching this for the first time. Um, in 2005, my father passed away, and I felt sorry for my mother, and and I wanted to try to help her and clean up her hoarder house. So I housed her and my disabled sister Jerry in my house, in my apartment, for a couple years, from 2005 to 2008. So in 2008, I moved my sister and my mother into her house because that house was paid for, but the neighborhood wasn't that great. Um, when my mother was living with me, things seemed to be okay because my mother didn't really socialize with the neighbors because we were in a complex and people didn't like hang outside like they did in the neighborhood. Like my mom used to sit on her front porch and smoke cigarettes, and because there was always neighbors like outside, um, she would talk to everybody that went by. She was just always looking for supply. So that's why it became a problem because the neighborhood was bad and the people were very shady. It was a heavily drug infested area. And I used to warn my mother, don't talk to people, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so she got involved with this guy named Tito, and Tito, she couldn't keep her mouth shut. She talked too much. She was extremely gullible. And she told this guy, Tito, all of her private business, how my dad had died and that she was going to come into money because there was a lawsuit pending and state money coming and blah blah blah. So Tito knew that you know, I wasn't gullible like my mom, and he knew that I was not on board with his shenanigans of trying to control everything. Because, like, he wouldn't respect boundaries. He would walk in and out of the house as if he lived there and stuff like that. And I didn't like it. Like, I saw right through what he was trying to do. So I found myself having restraining order and then on me, and then I had to go to court for that. Just created all kinds of problems. And then there was that incident that escalated where my son, like, he threatened my son inside the house. So my son went upstairs and got his shotgun and came down and racked the gun. But the gun wasn't loaded. He just was scared of him and told him, "You need to leave this house. It's not your house. Get out." And then Tito called the cops. And my mom backed up Tito's story, and the cops were very aggressive because he was telling the cops that um my son was outside on the front porch threatening to shoot people. And Tito knew that the cops would be very aggressive, and they literally almost shot my son and killed him. And during those years when I was like really angry before like really understanding what narcissism was really, to the point that I do today, here's my opinion compared to them. Back then, I thought that they both plotted, and they told the police that because she wanted him out of the house. And she knew that the cops were going to come and they were going to be aggressive and then possibly kill him, which they almost did. Because they burst into the house thinking that this guy was like some crazed loon, out threatening to shoot people. And, you do that and they're going to kill you. Um, but what I believe happened, and I say this with all sincerity, I don't believe that my mother initiated the call to the police. I believe that Tito did that and that my mother just went along with it. She didn't try to stop him because she just went along with whatever Tito wanted to do. Tito was the puppet master in that whole situation, and my mother blindly followed him. Like she blindly gave him money out of her bank account for no apparent reason just because he fed her narcissism, telling her how wonderful she is with all these cards and saying that she was the mother to him that he never had and all this other nonsense because everybody knew that she was a horrible hoarder and a very neglected thing. And what made me realize and change my thought about this was Dr. Les Carter's videos, and he said, and he explained how narcissists don't live in reality. They don't. They do not live in reality. And she was basically um just did everything that he told her to do. However, I will say this, and I believe this with total honesty. Had the police broken into the house and Patrick would have got shot because she didn't turn around and say, no, no, that's not true. He's not on the porch with a gun. He just, and she would have set the story straight with the cops, which she didn't do. Okay, she basically backed up Tito's story because she was a follower. That's what she did. She's not going to go against the person that's feeding her narcissism, her number one supply, right? I totally believe that had the police broken in and had they shot him, my mother would have remained indifferent. It would not have bothered her. Really, it wouldn't have. She would have been like, um, she would have saw it as a tragedy, but she would have saw it as Patrick asked for it. And it wouldn't have bothered her because my mother remained indifferent. She was not emotionally attached to other people. She was only emotionally attached to Tito so long as he fed her narcissism because he had spoken her language. Okay. He went into her non-reality world, her mindset of non-reality. And he knew how to manipulate that mindset for his own benefit. Okay. And this is how narcissists themselves can become victims because they're extremely gullible. So long as they, so long as they think that they're getting the upper hand in their magical thinking. Okay, that's what it's called, their magical thinking, in their non-reality, their magical world. If another human being can go into that non-reality world and feed, and you're giving that narcissist fuel, you're feeding their narcissism. Okay, they're all over that. You're going to be their number one. Okay, and that's how you can manipulate a narcissist. Most people aren't going to do it. People that are healthy are going to be like, oh my God, this is just so ridiculous. You're going to see the absurdity of it all. And magical thinking um, can be fatal. As explained, you watch all them crime shows, okay? And I've watched them and I've actually really listened to what the psychiatrists would say about, people that have commit heinous crimes. And one psychiatrist had said there was a story, okay, that they were doing on the Investigative Discovery Channel about this famous murderer. And this guy was married to this woman. Her name was Joy. I forget what his name was. Oh, I remember her name was Joy, right? And he didn't have any criminal record. Okay, he had no criminal record. Seemed like a standing person. Okay, and Joy was pregnant, and they also had a 6-year-old child. And Joy's father was living with them. Okay, so she was taking care of her father, a 6-year-old, and she was pregnant. So the husband was having an affair with a coworker. And I'm not sure if they were having how far that affair went, but there was definitely sexual shenanigans going on. There was an interest and there was flirtation and shenanigans going on behind the back. And then the coworker realized that Joy was pregnant, and he absolutely did not care about Joy. So the other woman coworker, said, I can't believe that you don't care anything about your wife. She's pregnant with your child and you just want to leave her. So the psychiatrist explained, after it was all said and done, that in his magical thinking, he's thinking, okay, because he wanted this coworker. He's thinking, all I got to do is get rid of, get rid of my wife, my father-in-law, and my child, and I will get what I want. So he did the unthinkable and murdered his pregnant wife, his 6-year-old little girl, and his father-in-law, and he set the house on fire. So in his magical thinking, his problems were over. He could start a new life with this other woman. Well, it didn't have to work out that way. They don't think, okay, pathologically narcissistic people do not think about the consequences of their actions. They don't think like that. Okay. And this is the non reality world that they live in. And my mother lived in that world. Not to that degree of pathology, but by herself, she was harmless. But together with the wrong company, it formed into a full blown wicked attraction. And thank God that it got stopped, because like, that's one thing I could say about my brother. My brother and I, and, my boss, who happened to be an attorney, who had a lot of connections with the district attorney because he did criminal law. So, like, they all knew each other. He knew what to do, to separate them two. Okay. Because once a wicked attraction is formed, bad things could happen, real bad things. What the outcome would have been had we not intervened and stopped it, I don't know. But it would not have had a good result for any of us, even including the narcissist. She could have been spending her last days behind bars. I have no idea. But all I knew is in 2009, when when it all hit the fan, I never ran for my life. No, faster than you could think of. I was just like, I am so done. I never, like, when after that happened with Patrick, and I got served with that restraining order, and I had to go to court and all this nonsense that she created. I was so scared. Okay, I just wanted to get away from her. My sisters were terrified. It was so bad. So yeah, it can get that serious with a narcissist. That's what ultimately led her to be put away, because it was either she was going to go into a nursing home or she was going to go to jail, because she was already committing crimes. Okay. And that was the early red flag back in 2004, when she went down the check cashing place and cashed stolen checks. And because the guy happened to know my parents, went after my father and said, hey, these checks are stolen. And my father paid the check cashing place the money. Had the police been called, my mother would have got arrested. Yeah. And they were all in cahoots with each other. Tito, and that was his friend. They called him Mohican. Okay. And she still did not stay away from these people. And the reason why was because they fed her narcissism. And it all comports to the black and white thinking of the narcissist, too. It's like, to her, okay, to her, in her mindset, we were like the bad guys. Her family was the bad guy. And the reason why we were all the bad guys was because we knew her. We knew the real Joanne, okay? The real person behind that helpless victim, covert a-hole that she presented herself to be to the outside world. We knew who she was. And anybody who figured her out, she wanted nothing to do with you. And the case in point was the neighbor Myrna across the street. Myrna figured her out real fast. And as soon as Myrna, because she was like, Myrna and her were very like close friends. Soon as she figured Myrna figured her out, she wanted nothing to do with Myrna anymore. hmm Because that's their black and white thinking. You're either all good or you're all bad. And either they can use you as a primary source of supply, a secondary use of supply, like they have to have control over you or think that they have control over you, right? And if they don't, then you're on their you're ousted. If there's no shades of gray with a narcissist. And yeah, so had it turned out to be a fatality, um, she wouldn't have cared. I am 100% certain about that. She would not have cared. Okay. But luckily, it didn't turn out that way. And I have grown a lot and I've learned a lot since the early days of this YouTube channel. And I really enjoy talking about this. And hopefully, my story helps other people. You know, I try to keep a low profile. I'm not out here trying to be a YouTube superstar or anything, but I do care. And I hope that my story can help somebody else. And just remember to not take things so personally when it comes to a narcissist. You can't take it personal. Even though what they do affects you personally, you shouldn't take it personal. Once you start understanding their mindset, that's when the healing begins. Okay? That's when you really start healing. And yeah, so yeah, I don't think her intent was for the police to shoot Patrick and kill him. No, that wasn't her intent. Her intent was to do whatever Tito told her to do. Okay? And that's it. Sometimes I wonder if Tito would have said, Joanne, I think your daughter is a real pain in the butt. I think you need to just, why don't you shut her up? All you got to do is drop this pellet into her soda when she's not looking, and that'll solve your problems, Joanne. Would she have said yes? I think she would have. I think she would have done it. Definitely. So, with that said, I'm going to end this video. Be careful out there. It's quite interesting. Take care and have a great day. Bye bye.